This is the recently revised Kia Sportage, and the Sportage actually has a special place in my heart because it was the first ever video review that I did for Carwow in April 2016, and since then we've gone on to have almost 500 million views, so thanks to you guys for that. Enough of the nostalgia and the humble brag. The Sportage is a small family SUV. It's an alternative to the likes of the Skoda Karoq, the Mazda CX-5 or the Hyundai Tucson, which actually the Sportage shares a lot of its parts with, including the engines. Now the Sportage starts from £20,000. Kia has given the Sportage a midlife facelift, so they've tweaked the front bumper slightly so it's even more aggressive and polarizing than before. Also there's some new LED headlights as well and some 19-inch alloy wheel designs. You can also get 5 new colors as well. Oh yes. And round the back there's a shiny bit of trim here on the bumper, and this range topping version has like this diffuser effect as well. And as with all of these cars, the higher you go at the range, the better the car looks, with extra accoutrements to make it look posher. On the inside they've also had a little bit of a tweak, so the car gets some new instruments there. This one's got a little digital display between the dials. There's also a new steering wheel, which does feel pretty nice on this one with the gloss black on it. It's posh, and they fixed one of the problems that I hated with Kia steering wheels of old. The central boss just doesn't feel cheap and nasty anymore. It's actually all right. The rest of the design is as before, and I actually like what they've done with this dash. The way it's kind of slabbed, a bit like in a sports car, and there's this fake stitching effect here on the soft touch material, which works for me. I like it. Also the soft touch materials here and in the doors as well. And generally it's okay. It's only when you go a bit further down does it feel a bit cheaper. That's quite scratchy actually, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, at least the centre console is really sturdy on this. On something like a Hyundai Tucson, it actually wobbles a little bit. Everything's laid out very simply. Look, ventilation controls, driving controls, safety controls. And on this particular car, look, I've even got aluminium pedals. Wow. Sportage by name and Sportage by the bits and pieces fitted to the car. I like the way that they've put the infotainment system into the dash as well. It's neatly done with the air vents either side. It's not quite as good as having it a bit higher up because you do have to look down a little bit, but generally the infotainment system is pretty easy to use. You also have these little shortcut buttons underneath it here. It's all very neat. Oh, excuse me. There we go. I think that's about as long as we can play a tune for before we're had for copyright. So you can zip between different menus nice and simply. The only thing with it is the graphics, while they're sharp enough, it's all a bit dull in terms of the colours. It could do with being a little bit brighter. Satellite navigation system is easy to use though, dead simple to program. You can put in a waypoint easy, choose different routes, avoid tolls, do all that kind of stuff. I also like the fact that you can do a detour, so you can just quickly like nip around some traffic. So generally I do like the system. It's not the best in the business. Something like in a Skoda Karoq is slightly better, but it is pretty decent. I also like the shiny vent surrounds here and up here. We've got gloss black around here. The dials feel sturdy and expensive. The door handles solid as well. It's a pretty nice car on the inside. I actually think it's nicer inside than the Tucson, which is pretty much the same car. What's not so great though is the rearview mirror. It just feels cheap and nasty, and you do touch that occasionally. But what I can't fault this Sportage for is the equipment levels. They're very, very generous, as I'll explain now in our specs section. The Sportage range kicks off with the One, and its equipment list includes Android Auto for your mobile phone, or Apple CarPlay if you have an Apple phone, obviously. A bog standard cruise control, and a rear parking camera, though the definition isn't particularly good. The next equipment level up is the 2, and that gets rear privacy glass so people can't see in, inbuilt satellite navigation for the infotainment system, and dual zone climate control rather than bog standard air conditioning like on the entry level car, only also gets heated seats. Edition 25 models add an upgraded JBL stereo, leather seats, and an 8-inch touchscreen rather than a 7-inch that you get on lesser models. And overall, I think the Edition 25 is the best value of the range. Then there's the GT line, which is basically just some extra styling bits such as 19-inch alloy wheels and some metallic sills. 4 models get full LED headlamps, electric front seats, and a heated steering wheel, which is ideal on a cold day like today. Range-topping GT Line S's add a panoramic glass sunroof, which does open as well if you want to let a little bit of air in. ventilated as well as heated front seats, and an automatic cruise control which will help slow the car to keep you safe distance from the car in front, and it'll even work in stop-start traffic. Let's talk about practicality, and it's pretty good up here in the front. So it doesn't matter if you're big or small, you should be able to get comfy in this car because there's enough adjustments in the seats and the steering wheel. I do think Korean cars tend to have a very good driving position. In terms of other bits of practicality, well, door bins are large enough to take a 1.5 litre bottle. There's some storage under here, quite a lot of it actually. I like this little area here, perfect for your key fob there. There's some storage there for your mobile phone, and it has, on this particular range stopping car, a wireless charging pad, which won't actually work on my phone because I need a new phone. Now I can charge it using one of these, either two 12-volt sockets or the USB port. Cup holders, they're a decent size, they're not too small like they are in some other cars, so you can fit cups of coffee, but also larger bottles in them. And the great thing is because they're offset to the left, they don't get in the way of your gear selector like they do in some other cars, so that's a good touch. Finish up on the glove box, which is all right. Yeah, shouldn't forget this. Oh, there we go, a padded sunglasses holder. Lovely. Let's move into the back then. This is a great car for families. Massive rear door openings. I mean, look at this, it's huge. You know, even if you're massive, you can get in the back. It's good in actually dealing with the baby seat as well. So the doors do open nice and wide. You've got to be careful though, because look at this, they go all the way back here. So in tight spaces, it can be a bit of a pain. Your kids may end up damaging nearby parked cars. So yeah, that's not so great. In terms of room back here, lots of knee room. Headroom though, look at that, that is actually pretty tight. It is made worse though by this panoramic glass roof. If you don't have it, it's not quite so bad, but still, people much over 6 foot will struggle with headroom in this car. Now, if I recline the seats, which I can do quite a way, look at that, it's great. I can stretch out, put my feet under the seat in front. Even when they're in the low position, there's enough room for your feet to stretch out. Now, the floor doesn't have too big a hump in it like in some other vehicles. So when you're carrying 3 at once, there's plenty of room for everyone's feet. What's not so great though is that it can just feel a little bit cramped in the back, mainly for the people on the outside, because the sporty seat bolsters there push you in, so you're all a little bit trapped. A Mazda CX-5 is ever so slightly better for carrying 3 people in the back at once. So other things to note on this car, look, yes, we've got an armrest, no through loading though, but you do have a couple of cup holders, big deal. The ISOFIX points there, they're easy to get to, which is handy when you're fitting in a baby seat. You don't have to remove the covers, it just slots in. Now if you're carrying 2 baby seats in the back, there really isn't much room left, so you couldn't squeeze someone in between the 2 seats. Now up here, look, you've got a coat hook there and another one there. I prefer the one there because then it doesn't dangle in front of the window. Speaking of which, oh, it's not one touch, if I do roll down the window, you can see it goes all the way down, which is good, so you can lean out, but the ledge is quite high, so they might not get such a good view out, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to annoy the kids because they'll end up just whining the whole journey. You do have some storage nets there, and they're nice and taut, so even if you stick your iPad in there, they're not going to flop around. And good news is there's 2 charging points down here, not just 1, 2. And finally, look, the rear door bins are big enough for a 1 litre bottle. I think that's all you need to know about practicality back here, apart from, oh yeah, look, there's a little reading light. Let's go to the boot. Let's go to the boot. Come on. Right, capacity of the boot is kind of par for the course for these kind of vehicles, and it is generally very good. Just let the power tailgate do its thing. So here we go. You have around 500 litres, so yeah, 100 of these. It's actually ever so slightly smaller than the boot on a Hyundai Tucson. The shape is nice and square though, and I've got a metallic scuff plate which feels very Germanic actually, very Audi. Makes it easy to slide things in and out without worrying about damaging your paintwork. You get this out of the way. Under here you have a little bit of extra storage as well. This is the 2 litre mild hybrid. If I had one of the other engines, you have a bit more storage under there, and you can even fit a space saver spare wheel. But with this mild hybrid version, there's no space because there's some electronic gubbins under there. I don't know too much about it. Right, we have a couple of tethering points here and here, some hooks where you can sort of hang stuff off, but if I try and do it with this bag, yeah, almost pointless, not great. Get some nets with the car actually to tie things down in the boot, and if I want to carry larger items I can of course fold the seats down, but I have to go around the back because the handle to do it is here, just on the seat base, which is a bit of a blooming faff. So yeah, now when I do it though, you can see, look, we get a pretty continuous flat floor, decent space. It's not as big the total volume though as you get with a a Mazda CX-5, but still it's probably large enough for most people, and because you've got this continuous floor, you can push a suitcase to the front. Now, good news is if you want to carry a bike, you can. The cabin's long enough that you don't have to take off the bike's front wheel to make it fit. Now, if you put the seat backs up and fit the load cover, then you can fit a couple of suitcases underneath there. Now, because you can't load the boot floor in this mild hybrid version, you can't quite fit as much in as you can with the Sportage with other engines. So in this particular car, all I was able to fit into it was 2 large suitcases with a couple of soft bags on top. Had I had one of the other engines, I'd be able to fit more in there because you can actually lower the boot floor, and it does make a difference. So bear that in mind when you're choosing which engine to go for. Do you want more power or do you want more boot space? It's your call. Life's full of choices, isn't it? Actually, there's more annoying things about this car. Here's 5. This car has perhaps the worst ever fake exhaust tailpipes. In fact, they're so bad, I wouldn't touch them with a barge pole. So that's why I've got this extra long Carwow stick of truth. Look, they lead to nowhere. In fact, the exhaust pipe is just underneath there like that. In fact, it's almost as ridiculous as this new Carwow stick of truth. Instead of being integrated into the seat back, the rear central seat belt is mounted in the roof, so it's a bit of a faff to fit. You have to do it in 2 parts like this, and it just gets in the way of the other passenger over there. Because the doors don't extend all the way down over the sills, when these get covered in muck when you're driving in the rain or in winter, and you get out, you end up rubbing the backs of your legs on there, and then your trousers are all dirty. While you have soft touch materials here on the door tops in the front, which feel suitably posh, in the cheap seats, it's cheap plastic. Yep, not so nice back here, which is a bit odd because in Kia's less expensive Ceed hatchback, you do have soft touch materials here on the door tops in the back. The rear windscreen wiper is rather small, so it only effectively clears about half the rear screen's total area. Thankfully, this car has plenty of cool features to help make up for all this. Here's 5. The 2-litre diesel's mild hybrid technology incorporates a 48-volt system, and when you're braking or slowing down, it recoups that energy and stores it in a battery to run the car's ancillaries. Also, it can power a little electric motor which gives 16 extra horsepower, so a little bit of extra shove when you're accelerating to help improve your fuel economy. There's a special compartment underneath the false boot floor where you can store the load cover. What you have to do is just slot that into position, work that into the car. In it goes like that. Put these covers on top to make it look neat and tidy. Then you're good to go. All Kias come with an industry-leading 7-year warranty. All Sportages have a hill descent control system which automatically applies the car's brakes to lower you gently down a slope. Efficient dynamics models of the Sportage are fitted with a more effective stop-start system and catalytic converter to further improve economy. Right, and let's talk about the engines. So, in terms of petrols, you can get a 1.6 litre naturally aspirated engine, but it's gutless, ignore that. If you want petrol, you want one of the turbos. They're 1.6 as well, and they're generally all right. In terms of diesels, you can get a 1.6 litre diesel, and there's a lower power version and a higher power version, but the lower power version is actually all you need for every day. There is a 2 litre diesel as well, which is what this car is, but it's rather expensive. Now you can get different versions with an automatic gearbox, and you can get front wheel drive or all wheel drive versions of the Sportage. Okay, that's the walk round dealt with. Now it's time to hit the road and see what this car feels like to drive. First off, I'm going to see what this Kia Sportage is like to drive in town. So, yeah, here's a speed hump. Going over it, you do notice them. The car doesn't bottom out because it's raised up, but it does feel a bit thumpy when you come off the top of the speed hump. It does feel like the suspension in this car is quite firm. And you notice that as well when you go over a poorly surfaced road. It constantly shakes and moves around beneath you. It's not the most relaxing of SUVs in town as a result. Right, let's check out how manoeuvrable this car is. So if we're going to do a U-turn around this mini roundabout, that is not bad at all. It's got a decent turning circle for a big car such as this. Right, let's see how easy this car is to park. Now, one thing I've noticed is that with this hybrid version, the brakes are a little bit grabby when you first touch them, because the first part of the braking actually charges up the battery for the hybrid system. So it's just not the smoothest in town. However, the automatic gearbox in this car does help. I'm going to have to manoeuvre in the mirror so I can actually see the curb so I don't curb my wheels. I wish it went down automatically. The steering on this car is a little bit heavier than you might think, so it does just mean a little bit more effort when you're manoeuvring. Not the best parking, but I think that'll do. The back window isn't too bad, but the parking sensors are essential. It's all right to manoeuvre around town, this. It's not the best, but it's okay. This Kia Sportage is pretty decent. When you're just cruising on the motorway, feels solid at speed. You do get a little bit of noise from the tyres, but that's about it. So the engine in this car is the 2-litre diesel. It comes with 4-wheel drive, 8-speed automatic gearbox, and mild hybrid technology. So let's just say I'm cruising at 60 miles an hour. Let's see how responsive it is if I need to suddenly overtake. So here's 60, floor it, gearbox responds sweetly, engine pulls strong, that's 70 like that. Dead good for overtaking, nice and relaxed. So what does the mild hybrid tech do for economy then? It's supposed to do 49 miles per gallon this car, but I'm getting 35. Oh dear, not so good. So then what happens when you encounter a twisty road? After all, this car is called the Sportage. Well, it actually goes around corners all right, but the steering just feels a little bit artificial. You can't tell how much grip the front tyres have got, and really you need that in order to have some fun in a car, to be truly confident of what it's doing beneath you. So, my verdict on the Kia Sportage: should you avoid it? Should you consider it? Should you shortlist it? Or should you just go right ahead and buy it? Well, I reckon you should consider the Kia Sportage. You know, it's a really decent small family SUV. It's just that there's lots of alternatives which are a bit better.